Hi, today we're going to build a bookmark system that works in real time with your database in Xano or wherever you want to have your database. But for this tutorial, we're going to use Xano. And the nice thing about that is, as you can see, we're not just sending the data and updating it in real time in Xano, we're also re-rendering the list, since we're using embed 2, without any content flashing, and we keep all the information up to date. So if I were to reload the page, it will continue the progress because it updated the information live on our Xano database. So let's get started right into that, how we build it. So as always, let's start with the Webflow setup. So we just have a list and a grid. Very simple setup. You can study this intensively in the clonable. But the magic really begins when we tap into this bookmark component. But let me just really quick start with the other components that are Wized related as well. So we have on this item the Wized attribute of quote item, just to make sure that we are rendering a dynamic list. And of course we have Wized cloak applied to that. Again, you don't need to do true. This is just me adding that in there. It doesn't make any difference if you add true or nothing in there, just so that you know. And then I have the heading also applied with a Wized attribute of wisdom title so that we can set text for it. Then we have the same thing for the paragraph. We have a Wized attribute of wisdom paragraph. Perfect. And yeah, let's move into the bookmark. So we have a link block with the bookmark, and we have the Wized attribute of bookmark button applied to it. As you can see, we have two elements in here. Those are both SVG icons copied from Relume icon library. So we have this attribute applied to it for is bookmarked icon. This will be the icon that will be shown when this item is bookmarked, either in the database or on an action that gets performed in our Wized element. And then if it is not bookmarked, we have the Wized attribute of is not bookmarked icon applied to it. And yeah, this will be shown here when it is bookmarked, this when it is not bookmarked, or as default. And we're going to do the same process for the is not bookmarked as well. And then we have a hidden input field using the custom component. So we just have a tag applied to it as input. We have the type as text right here. And we have the Wized attribute of bookmark status applied to it. Why hidden input field, you may ask yourself this. We need to have a value for every item when we update it. For example, we have bookmarked false, right? When I click this button, I want that if it is bookmarked false, it needs to move to bookmark true. But we don't want to send the request to the database, wait a second, and then re-render the list and show checked. The user would go crazy and already click this 50 times because nothing is moving in that second. And we would have 50 API calls and it's still not moving because it's still moving on. So in order to avoid this, we're going to use a technique where we are displaying the user feedback. And after we display the user instant feedback, we're updating the database a second later. Like if the user just starts clicking them randomly, that may cause some issues. But a lot of websites do it like that, mainly web apps as well, to improve the user experience. Because when you check this box, it's like a Webflow form submission. If you check a box, the box is not already checked in the database. You have to submit the form, right? So it's a bit like this. We click this bookmark. It will show instantly as checked on the user, and then it will trigger the API call to send it to the backend and then reload it. But it is already shown. It just updates the data to keep it fresh. And yeah, this is how we're doing that so that we can have the real value of it, but use this hidden input field to override the default value with now from false to true, for example, to show the bookmark instantly, and then take this value that is in the hidden input field from false now to true, send it to the database, do an API call, and then when we get the API call back, we set this value from true to true because it stayed true, but so that all the data is up to date. And that's what we're going to do right now in Wized. I just wanted to explain you that in Webflow because it is nice because we can see all the components and how they behave. Because Webflow is a wonderful tool, it is also a wonderful tool to explain those things. And I somehow got my microphone out of my hands. Perfect. Yeah. And look at the animation. Isn't that wonderful? Like, this is the new skeleton loader. Perfect. Thank God that we're only loading 6 items. Otherwise, we would need to have a skeleton loader. Okay. So let's get started with the Wized setup. We have this endpoint called quotes that will load our quotes, as you can see. Wonderful. And it's just a get endpoint to Xano. We actually have this endpoint in here. It is just a get endpoint getting this from our database. Very simple. Perfect. And then let's go to the next part. Perfect. And we have our bookmark request. And this is a post request. And we are sending the ID. And here's the neat thing that you can do if you render a list. I don't know if you knew that. It's kind of like, I just figured that out because I was working on a project one time and I had no idea how to do it. So I may save yourself here a learning curve. If you have an iterator here that is already designated to this list, right? You can use the index of this list in case, like this part, plus the iterator and the subpath or the dot notation of ID to get the current element the user clicks on. So think of it like this. The user clicks on the third item, so it would be the second index. It would already, since we're just, this item here is referenced based on the array we're getting from the database of index 2, for example, we would already get ID 4 when we send this. Now, in this case, we're going with index 1, so we will get ID 1. But this is the nice thing about that. So you just want to take from the array you're rendering the ID item, and you want to replace the number with your iterator that is designated to this list here. So you don't have to do jQuery to get the element. Wized is already doing all that fancy stuff for you. So like, you don't even have to think of how you're going to do the index. Wized is doing this for you. You don't even have to think about it. Like, this is how great of a tool Wized really is, and we can be very thankful that this is out there. So let me just go to the Boolean, and then we do the same thing. We have this form input here. We're going to put the form input here. This one, this is the hidden form input. And we're going to add the viterator in there that is also designated to the list so that we can push it. Perfect. So yeah, let's also look into the bookmark endpoint in Xano, how we're going to do that. So we're just setting the ID, the Boolean, and we're just doing edit record. We search ID by ID, and we just do the Boolean with the Boolean we sent to the database. Perfect. That's super simple. And now let's go to the actions in Wized. That's really where the magic happens. So on page load, we're going to perform the request of getting the quotes, like here. Perfect. And then we're just doing a simple set text action on the paragraph and on the heading, and we're just setting the text from the array that we're getting from the database. I made enough videos explaining how to do that, so I would highly recommend you to look into I think it was the how to push objects into array. I made a whole series just how to work with arrays. You should look into that because there are a lot of valuable information for you if you have never worked with arrays before. Perfect. So let's go to the exciting thing. We're going to render the list. So we apply this action for render list onto this element. It's a bit like Webflow CMS. And we're going to render the list from this array right here. And we add the viterator on there. Perfect. So let's just collapse the ones we already made. And let's go through the bookmarking process because this is why you are watching this video. Perfect. So let's start at 1. By the way, Nelson, we gotta move 1 again on top. Like, this is not working for me. I'm confused. Yeah, let's start at 1. So we apply this to the bookmark status. This is the hidden input field. And actually we set visibility to return false just to have it hidden. So we don't need to write more code to have it hidden. So like, this is just a little way I went around that to have it hidden. And then we set the input value, and the input value, you could just like use the input value. Sometimes I like to use the hidden input field and do like an equal of the input I'm getting from the database. So meaning this one, just to make sure that it gets properly pushed into there as a Boolean and not as a string, because sometimes that messes it up. So I just do this as a security caution feature to just make sure that everything is going good. But it would work the other way around too. Yeah, it would work. I just do this to be extra careful and to make sure that it is working all the time on all devices. Okay, perfect. And then we have the is bookmarked icon. So this is this icon here. This is bookmarked icon. And we're just setting visibility based on if the hidden input field with the iterator, so the iteration of this, wherever it is on right now in the list, if this is true, we're going to show the bookmarked icon, this one. And if this is not true, so if this equals false, we're going to show the not bookmarked icon. So meaning this one is not bookmarked. This one right here. Perfect. And then we have the function to remove the bookmark. So we have this button here, this link block, and we have on event click, we do a run function. So what we're doing here, we're saying that if the value in the hidden input field is already false, please set it to true. And if it is not already false, so if it is true, please set it to false. So we always set it to the opposite. That's like everything we do in there. Very simple. And then on click, and we do this under this one, so we trigger it after this. It's a bit like the after request in embed 1. We do on event, click, perform request, bookmark. So we do the API call to take what's in the hidden input field and to send it back to the database so that we have the information in sync, so that when we click on here, reload the canvas, it will still show it clicked on here because we get it from the database. Perfect. And yeah, let's move to the last thing for this video, which is the on event click to perform the request to reload the quotes, just to make sure that when we perform this action, now we update the thing in the database, we are re-rendering from the database, just so that the array we are receiving here is always up to date. If we were not doing that, we would have something checked, and it would say true on the database, true, but this array may say false for that item. And this may cause some issues if you're working with other things and expanding out of this clonable. So that's just a little best practice we did here to make sure that you can work with that clonable in all directions that you want to work with. And yeah, this is it. This is it. And thank you so much for all your support. Thank you so much for watching the videos. This really means a lot to me. And yeah, I hope that this clonable is as exciting to you as it is to me to build this. I hope this will help you with what you're working on right now. And yeah, just make sure that you don't have any rate limitation in Xano, so that you have the paid plan, because otherwise it will not work, because we're doing an API call for every click. Actually, 2 API calls for every click. So this is a wonderful way to keep your data on the database in sync all the time. And yeah, this is how I would build it. Just something to watch out for. If you have any user that would do something like this, like just go in there crazy, and then go like crazy in here, and going crazy like here. If I were now to click something else, It's sometimes not. Like sometimes I click something and it automatically unchecks it. This is something we built in here just to make sure that it's always in sync with the database. Think of it like this. I would check something, but the API call would fail because I was making too many requests, right? Or something didn't work, server was down, I don't know. Now the user would see it as checked and will think it's checked, but it's not saved. So what we're doing is we're doing the other API call. So if it wasn't successful, it will just, if this wasn't successful, it will just revert it back to not saved so that the user can click again and do the API call and it will be a success this time. This is just something that is not intentionally built in, but this is just a side effect of how we build this setup in general. This will also help that the user doesn't save something and doesn't have it saved because something wasn't working on the backend. So I just wanted to highlight that out. You may get that feature out. You may keep that feature however you want to work with that. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I'm always here and happy to help you. Thank you so much for all your support. I really appreciate it, and I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.